Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the MX Endurance Podcast, where we look at everything that's been happening in the world of endurance sports. My name is Tim Ford, and I'm joined by the penultimate legend, the sexy shepherdess, the sexiest voice in triathlon, Jimmy the Big Man Bale. Welcome back to the podcast, mate.
How are you, mate? It's been a while, isn't it? Another week, another podcast. Here we are. They come around quick nowadays, I swear to God. How are you going?
Yeah, mate. Good. It's all good. We were actually having a conversation before we hit record today that we are in a little bit of a time vortex, and I thought we'd be upfront with our listeners that things are probably going to be a little bit different, podcast-wise, for the next week, maybe 2 weeks, because we've realised just before we recorded that this is going to be our actual last episode before the women's race in Kona. So we decided that this week is going to be our big Kona preview, because of the women's race being on a Thursday, which is the same day as the episode would normally come out. So it would not make sense for us to do a preview episode after the race has happened. But we also can't record the race preview because, again, time zones and stuff. So obviously we're doing a big Kona episode this week, and then I'm in Kona next week, and I'm going to try and get some chats with someone. I'm going to try to talk with maybe Chris or some of the coaches. I don't really want to go with the athletes. There's breakfast with Bob. There's all that sort of stuff. But if I can get some people, I will. But there might not be an episode next week just because I know what it's like in Kona and it is hectic, and I'm not there as a podcast. I'm there as athlete representative. So we don't know if there'll be an episode next week, but as soon as the episodes, the races are done and I'm back in Australia, we'll record the review episode. So there might be an episode there might be 2 episodes a week after. We're not sure yet, but just so everybody knows, the schedule might be a little bit different. And if there is an episode next week, there definitely won't be a YouTube video. So it'll just be audio next week if it happens. But that's
I think skipping that, because next week's going to be chaos with the split race, with the women's race early and the men's race late. We'd be releasing an episode previewing a race that had already happened and previewing a race that was about to happen, and it'd just be confusing. So I think the best thing we can do is leave that review episode to the week after. And if you can get some little Brucey bonuses next week when you're on the ground, so be it. If not, we'll live to fight another day, I'm sure.
We've heard all about the conversations about the unforeseen consequences of splitting the race over 2 days. But did they really consider the MX Endurance Podcast, James Bale, and the chaos that this would?
I don't think
recording
they did.
schedule.
I don't think they did. This will be the last time they don't think about us. I'm sure. I'm sure someone is listening to this podcast right now, making notes.
Andrew's listening right now.
Yeah,
Messick's going, mate. Yeah, you're right. Sorry, boys. I didn't even. Shit. We said next year's going to be 2 days. Again, we can't because we know that it's going to mess with your recording schedule too much. But so yeah. Anyway, this is going to be a big Kona preview. There's plenty of other stuff to talk about in addition to Kona, mate. But before we get to that, this podcast is the official podcast of MX Endurance, the world's premier endurance sports community created by 4-time world champion Chris McCormack. Jimbo, what's something you like about MX Endurance?
Well, it's got to be this time of year, isn't it? Because this time of year, the community really does come alive because we've got that, lead in to the Ironman World Championships. We all have missed the racing on Kona for some time. And being able to enjoy this lead-in and this build-up with a community of people that are all on the same page and have friendly debates within the community about who's going to win, who's not going to win, what's going to happen, who's in and who's out. It's always a pleasure to be part of this community in the build-up to the World Championships, the longest-running World Championships in triathlon.
One of many. I have enjoyed actually. So. I don't know if you remember, but last week I had some thoughts about some stuff, and it's been it's been very interesting to see. I've had a lot of messages from people this week, some very negative, some I'm all good for, I'm happy to have discussions, but I've had some really good discussions with people actually, but I've liked the conversations with the MX guys, and some of them have been like, oh, I think you missed the mark a little bit. Oh, I agree with this. Or yeah, you make a good point. Like, I always like that is, yeah, I've said it a lot. I always feel like MX is a really safe space to just have conversations about things. So that's definitely something that I like about MX. But yeah, I've had
you've taken some grief.
I've had some messages.
You've taken some grief, haven't you? I've seen it. I've watched it play out. I like to stay out of these things.
You've loved it, haven't you?
I do. I have. I try not to I try and leave Twitter as something I don't really engage in. I view it sometimes. I don't know why, but I try not to get involved in conversations on there because it doesn't do my mental health any good. So I've just watched you. I've watched you
It's
dealing
not all
as
been
a
negative. Some
no,
it's
no.
been there's been I reckon I actually think it's been I reckon it's probably been 20% negative, 80% in agreements with me, which I quite appreciate. But you know what? I realized something this week that was quite funny is so on Twitter you can mute people. And I'm like, as soon as somebody says something, I just like, yeah, fucked. I mute them. And I've realized because I actually don't think there's that big a triathlon community on Twitter because it always seems to be the same people. And I've realized that I seem to have most of them muted now because there'll be a tweet up about something to do with triathlon, and it's like, this tweet's by an account you've muted. This tweet's by an account you've muted. This tweet's by an account you've muted. And I'm like, I must have muted about 80% of the people who tweet about triathlon because I think it was Brad Colt put up a tweet, one of the ones I haven't muted, surprisingly, and all the responses were just like, yeah, muted. I'm like, yeah, okay, I've muted a lot of triathlon.
You've muted most of the triathlon world. Understandable. I understand. I swear Twitter's changed its algorithm recently because I'm not seeing as much of the normal stuff that I used to see, sports-related stuff.
You've all got them muted too. That's what it is.
Oh, maybe, but I'm just seeing so much bullshit now. Whenever I log into that website, it's just sensational bullshit that I don't want to hear.
I just get video game stuff, so I'm always happy because that's my my other passion, mate. Very passionate about video games. Not really. I just enjoy them. Mate, let's get into it because there is, like I said, big Kona preview episode. We've got a lot to talk about this week. But we're going to start with a not so good piece of news, and that is the news that Kat Matthews was involved in a serious car crash, which means she will not be racing the Ironman World Championships this week. Now, we both know Kat really, really well. And this little summary comes from Romy von Louise Schoenveld at Try Today. And he said, a couple of days ago while out cycling in Houston, she was still around in the US after the PTO Open. And while working towards World Championships in Hawaii, Matthews got hit by a car. She said, a car turned into me and bashed me up on a social media post. Former Ironman World champion Patrick Lang was out there with her and immediately tried to stabilize Matthews before she was taken to hospital. He said she was unconscious and confused at first. We were riding on a quiet road we have ridden a dozen times before, and a car from the other direction just turned across the road and took her out. Luckily, the ambulance and other first responders were there quickly. She had no chance of avoiding the crash at pretty high speed on a flat, fast road. Matthew's husband, Mark, explains that she has sustained a few injuries, among those fractures in her skull, vertebrae, and sternum. Mark continued to say that Kat will make a full recovery, and it's mostly stitches and a few tiny cracks. Terrible news, mate. And again, from both of us, we just hope that Kat absolutely recovers quickly and bounces back and gets back to her best.
Yeah, absolutely. It was terrible to hear when someone's had an accident like that. All the best for a speedy recovery and a return to, normality and racing at some point. Sounds very similar to a crash I had with a friend of mine a few years ago, Kat, who's actually a member of the MX Endurance community. We were out riding. Yeah, and we were tearing down this road, and this old bloke in a car just turned straight across the road, and she T-boned into the side. It sounds like a very similar kind of incident, unavoidable in the moment, and quite distressing for everyone involved. Obviously for Kat who hit the car, but for everyone there, I'm sure it wasn't an easy moment. So all the best to everyone.
Yeah, again, and I think just so close. It seems to happen every year, and I think not just this, but it's this thing recently where we get closer to these races, and it's just more and more people seem to not come out. But again, every year, normally it's in Kona, there seems to be a serious bike crash involved a pro every year. Tim Don, we know happened in Kona a few years ago. The whole Halo thing. I think was it Matt Russell previously? Like it's just. It sucks.
Yeah.
So
it does suck. It does suck because we want to see full race fields whenever racing's happening.
Exactly.
Take aside the risk to life. We're glad that, but the impact on the race is a shame as well.
Onto something completely different and non-triathlon related, but I thought we absolutely have to put this in the show this week, and that is the news that Kenya's Kipchoge shatters the marathon world record in Berlin. I got this from the Australian Broadcast Corporation, actually, ABC. Kenya's Eliud Kipchoge shattered his own marathon world record, winning the Berlin race with a time of 2 hours, 1 minute and 9 seconds to shave half a minute off his previous mark set in the German capital 4 years ago. The 37-year-old, who has now won 15 of his 17 career marathons, including 2 Olympic triumphs and 10 major titles winners in a class of his own. He set a blistering pace along the flat inner city course on an overcast day to cement his status as the greatest ever marathon runner. He said, "I'm happy with my preparation, and I think I was so fast because of the teamwork. Everything is down to teamwork. I planned to go out fast in the first half. I thought, try to run fast. It was a marvelous performance. Only a handful of runners could keep up with his sub 3-minute kilometer split times in the early stages, along with a group of pacemakers. He gradually shook off last year's winner, Gui Adola, but fellow Ethiopian Andamalek Bilu refused to buckle, even as they raced through the halfway mark in under an hour. Mr. Bilu finally dropped back around the 27-kilometer mark as Kipchoge pushed on for the record. Now, for people playing along at home who are maybe struggling to understand kilometers and all this, or miles or whatever, or even put this into perspective, everybody knows what a park run is, James Bale. And I saw that, I think it was Hal Cross, the Colonel, shared this in the MX group this week. And it is Eliud Kipchoge's 5-kilometer splits for his marathon. Now, this is fucking mind-blowing. The first one, 14:14. The second one, 14:08. The third one, 14:10. The fourth one, 14:12. The fifth, 14:24. The sixth, 14:32. The seventh, 14:30. The eighth, 14:43. For a time of 2 hours, 1 minute 09. You think that the guys doing those sprint triathlons are running around this?
Yeah, I mean,
for 5K?
I can put that park run detail into a bit more perspective here as well. Only 32 park runners have a 5K park run PB at an average pace quicker than his 5K PB of a 42.2. So only 32 park runners in the history of park run have run their park run with a faster average pace than his 42.2. The fastest 8 5K park runs and the fastest junior park run this weekend gone, which is the weekend he did it, would have taken 2 hours, 7 minutes and 9. So, you know, he's going so much quicker than the rest of us. And like
making it look easy too.
No. I mean, I've been building my running back up a bit recently since I broke my ankle in January, and I've started doing some sprint intervals in the last couple of weeks just to sort of see where I'm at. Now, my sprints, mate, they're not much quicker than his average pace right now. Do you know what I mean? And it's unreal, and the effortlessness that he seems to portray as he's running. You know, his shoulders don't really rock. He doesn't dip the shoulder on each leg. He's got absolute upper body stability. His head hardly moves. His the efficiency that he shows when he's running is beyond anything I've ever seen anywhere. And I'm here for it.
I want somebody to edit together footage of Eliud Kipchoge running his 5 kilometers and then get footage of Lionel running his 5 kilometers and like just look at the difference in those. I guess again, Lionel is an incredible runner, but you want to talk about he ain't a pretty runner. But yeah, Eliud Kipchoge, mate, he's 100% the greatest of all time.
And he did the first half marathon in under an hour. So there was, you know, the rumors had been on fire that he was going to be going for the sub 2 marathon, and that was borne out by the first half of this race. He faded slightly in the second half, but I mean, when I say faded, that's a loose term because he's still going faster than I could ever go.
One of the things again around this that I find interesting, I think I said I watched on the plane. I watched the documentary around the sub 2 hour project, the 159 that they did. Yeah. And there was somebody saying that it would probably be another 50 or 60 or 70 years until we saw a human actually break the 2 hour barrier. And I think that he took 30 seconds. He took 30 seconds of his time in 4 years. Like, I think the developments are going a lot faster. I think we're going to see maybe that. Well, actually, no. Come on, stand up for it, Tim. I think we'll see a sub 2 hour in the next couple of years. I think, to be honest, like,
do you think so? Do you think it will be Kipchoge because he's going to age himself out of it at some point?
I don't think it'll be. This is what I always say though. Like, look in triathlon. What's the response to him? What's that next generation that's seen what he has done and has lifted the bar? Or what is the junior athlete who's been training with him, who's already running those times, but he's 10 years younger? Yeah, like, that's what always. That's, I know. That's to be fair,
I have recently started doing my sprint intervals again, mate. So watch out, Eliud. Watch out, son. I'm coming.
I mean, I didn't want to say it, but you've put it out there. You're right. It's probably going to be you, James. I expect you to run that.
Yeah.
You did a half marathon over the weekend. Did you crack 2 hours, mate?
I was there as a pacer for a friend of mine.
That's not answering my question, is it?
I was there as a pacer for a friend of mine who wanted to go sub 2, and
And
they fell off a little bit at the end. I couldn't get them to run any faster. It was 2:01:40. I think we crossed the line.
so you,
And
I love just again, you want to
yeah,
put
yeah.
the parkrun thing in perspective.
I know. I was tempted to use my own experience over the weekend to put it into perspective, but I thought, no, we'll keep that one under my hat. But you
I do
brought
love
it
it.
out.
It's like, hey, mate, did you go on in 2 hours? Well, did it. So, no, you didn't. I love it.
I didn't. No.
Pacer.
But the good thing is my ankle held up and I didn't break a sweat. So it was a good place for me. It was a good result for me. I felt good all weekend. But no, didn't get that sub 2. But next year.
Next year, mate, let's do it. Okay, the next piece of news comes from World Triathlon itself, and that is that they have approved the first events for the 2023 season calendar. Now, this is a press release that they put out. It's by Olala Sonuda. There may be plenty of racing left to come in this extended 2022 season, but we are already looking forward to a thrilling 2023 with new host cities and established favourites ready to roll out the blue carpet for the world's best triathletes. The board has approved the first events of the 2023 calendar. The series will finish in Pontevedra, Spain, while Hamburg, Germany will host the 2023 Sprint and Relay World Championships and the Spanish island of Ibiza, the Multi-Sport Championships. There's more events to be announced. On top of the events in Pontevedra and Hamburg, 2 cities have already been confirmed as stops on the 2023 Championship Series, including Yokohama in May at Olympic distance. And July, the athletes will travel to Sunderland in the UK as the city makes its debut on the circuit, replacing Leeds as a host city. Where's Sunderland, mate?
Somewhere.
Okay.
Somewhere, I don't know, north.
Near London?
If it's north of Birmingham, I don't know much about it. Let's have a look.
I don't know where Birmingham is either. On the World Triathlon Cup calendar, the season will start with a classic destination making its long-awaited return to the circuit in New Plymouth in New Zealand in March. 3 other destinations, Horticalo in Mexico, Karlovy Vary in Czech Republic, and
It's fucking miles away.
Miyazaki in Japan, already confirmed for 2023. Here are the dates already confirmed. So 13th to 14th at Yokohama of May, 15th to 16th of July, Hamburg, 29th and 30th of July, Sunderland, 23rd, 24th September, Pontevedra.
Sunderland's fucking miles away. It's up near Newcastle on the east coast. It's, really, really high.
Okay, so you're going to get up there and go check it out, mate?
Yeah, you never know. I've never been to Newcastle.
Isn't the UK like tiny? So shouldn't you've been everywhere? The amount of driving you do.
I haven't been everywhere. I've been. I don't tend to go north very much.
Okay.
It's not.
Go to the mainland.
Yeah,
the continent. Sorry,
it's a bit colder. Yeah, I tend to go to the continent. It's a bit cold up in the north.
I mean,
they're all
isn't
too
it cold
friendly
everywhere?
for my liking. Hey, they're all too friendly up there for my liking. I'm not used to it.
Really? I don't know enough about the intricacies of the UK.
No, it's bloody freezing everywhere right now. Yeah, you're quite right. This will be interesting. This calendar, mate. It's good to see. I'm pleased to see that the UK is rotating out of Leeds a little bit though, because you don't want to be in the same place for too long. And it's always exciting when you see the calendar be launched and to see which races are going to be the key ones for next year. I have a feeling next year we're going to see a bit of a race between Hayden Wilde and Matt Hauser, if I'm honest. I know that he's still going to be there and a big player, but I think Hauser's taken a step up. You can see that within the Super League results, and I think he's going to bring something to the party on the World Championship stage.
What about our returning gold medalist?
That's true, because he's going to have done Kona, isn't he? And then he's going to put his focus into the Olympics. So yeah, you're quite right. I see Christian Blumenfeld's evolution as an athlete. I don't think his focus next year will be on the World Championships. I think he'll be more refining a perfect approach towards the Olympics.
Yeah. I'll tell you one of the things I found interesting looking at this list of venues was we know that they had that Bergen World Cup event a couple of months ago, which was a huge success. I was watching Breakfast with Bob today, and Christian and Gustav were talking about that Bergen race, saying there's like 20,000 spectators there. And I have a feeling that might actually get the upgrade and become a WTCS race instead of a World Cup race, because I think it was an absolute smashing success. So I just have this sneaking suspicion. I was thinking, man, again, based on the comments I said last week, I was like, that's where the PTO should go. Put a PTO event in Bergen. Like had a big climb, had cobbles, had the whole thing, had the huge crowds. That's what they need. A really tight, exciting course. That's what I was like. That's where I'm all for it, I think.
A course that brings the noise a little bit, and is aesthetically pleasing and interesting to both those on the ground, but also those watching on TV. Those that's what we're after. That's what the triathlon world needs, to bring audiences in with their eyes, not just the fact I watch triathlon, so I will watch this race.
Not to get ahead of ourselves, but again, watching Breakfast with Bob today, it was interesting hearing Christian talking about how he thinks he wants to try to win the grand final this year as well. So he wants to win Kona, win 70.3
He's a thirsty boy, isn't he? He's a thirsty boy. Eh?
It's like, mate, hungry hippo just wants every single one of these things. It's crazy. Mate, imagine though. Let's hypothesize again. We'll get to it later, but he wins St. George, he wins Kona, he wins St. George, and he wins the grand final in 1 year. That's a pretty impressive year.
Yeah, I mean, it comes. We'd have to shut the fuck up a bit, wouldn't we? Sort of like, he can't win everything, he can't do it. It's not going to continually. This momentum isn't going to continue. He would be silencing a few people, and it would become almost silly to write him off or to not pick him for races if he started.
The thing is, though, it's like I never ever think he couldn't do it. Like every single race, he could 100% win it. I just get bored of picking him all the time. Like that's genuinely what it is for me. It's like I could, without any race that Christian Blumenfeld lines up for, I would happily pick him for the win. But I don't want to be. Firstly, he races so fucking much that it's like, at least the Yarn's like once in a blue moon you actually get to see Yarn for a dinner race. I'll pick Yarn when he races. But yeah, I feel guilty. I almost feel guilty just constantly picking Christian because literally there isn't a race. There is not a race that he lines up for. And I don't think, like, even when I don't pick him for a race, I still think, he could fucking win this thing. I would 100% happily pick him. So it is more a case of, I think this podcast would be very boring if it was just like, Christian. Christian.
The Christian Blumenfeld Appreciation Podcast. It's and that's the thing, isn't it? Because that's why we try and keep it interesting, because I don't want a sport where one person wins everything all the time and there's always a guaranteed winner. This isn't like the early noughties watching Michael Schumacher dominate Formula One. I don't want that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, F1's an excellent example. I have 100% lost interest this year just because fucking Max Verstappen is winning every goddamn race. I saw a really funny meme thing the other day, and they said the cool down room at an F1 is basically a podcast hosted by Max Verstappen where he interviews a different person every week, because it's literally just Max and then two other people every single week. It's just getting, it's a bit boring, isn't it? So
it is a little bit. I mean, I barely watch Formula One anymore. But it is
because of Max Verstappen, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to excuse me a moment. I'm just going to. I'll be back in 2 seconds.
Okay, the next article in the podcast, James, you actually put in. So I'm going to let you take the lead on this one, mate, because I haven't actually read it yet. So do you want to take the lead on this next one?
This just builds on something we were talking about a few weeks ago, because we were talking about, has the Ironman World Championship become too costly? Is it becoming something that, is less of a reflection of the grassroots of the sport and more just those who can afford to go and do it? And Tim Hemming, with his way of wording things, has worded it a little bit better than we probably did in an article for 220 Triathlon magazine. So I borrowed it. Thanks, Tim. And it says, Kona, we have a problem. If it costs athletes around £10,000 to take part in a world championship, then it's a world championship in name rather than substance. The Ironman World Champs have never been a cheap trip, but there has been an acceptance that traveling halfway around the world to race on a Pacific island with limited accommodation comes at a price. And given the financial investment to reach the level needed to qualify is already high, those wanting to race long course triathlon have long seen it as part of the rub. The pandemic has meant that with no Kona since 2019, qualifiers mounted and Ironman expanded October's showpiece to 2 days, Thursday and Saturday. Whilst this has benefits, including hopefully an improved women's race, also puts more strain on the infrastructure of a small town of Kalula, Kona, that now must host almost double the number of triathletes, more than 4,000 over the 2 days of racing, plus support crews. Professional triathlete Joe Skipper pointed out as much in a social media post explaining why he might forgo Hawaii after his previously booked apartment was cancelled on him, with the option of rebooking at 3 times the cost or looking elsewhere. With limited regulation, landlords have taken advantage of increased demand to renege on bookings and hike prices up to fourfold the original. Costs are already circa £900 for a race entry, £1 to £1,300 for flights from the UK, plus transfers, car hire, and food. Some qualifiers explained how it would be the trip of a lifetime. Many turned down their spot. Others were honest enough to admit they paid up but were now regretting it. Ironman has already confirmed next year's World Championship will again be held over 2 days in Hawaii, but at what cost? There will always be super rich individuals to fill slots, but if the majority of the best can no longer afford to go, will the rest of the best want to either? The result comes as a watered-down event that is more elitist than ever before. Hawaii is a golden goose they need to nurture, or we know what happens. I thought I saw this article. I know we've talked about this before, but I thought it was worth putting in because he does manage to put across what we were trying to say a little bit better than we were trying to say it, which is essentially it's going to become a watered down event where it's a jolly for rich people as opposed to a world championship.
I kind of feel like this has happened a bit this year already, to be honest. Like it's very interesting to me to see that we know that there's been this delay of athletes who, you know, they basically have to get through this backlog of people through Kona to make sure they can start, you know, letting new people qualify. But things like, I know that at Copenhagen, for example, they just suddenly increased the number of Kona slots available. And it got to the point where they're at roll down going, does anybody want to go to Kona?
Yeah.
Now, as a 70.3 athlete, that is not an uncommon occurrence for me. In Australia, if the world champ's on the other side of the planet, people are like, no. I remember I think the one I really regret was when I was 2014, 70.3 Western Sydney. I went to the roll down and it was for ZLMC. And it was saying, does anybody want to go? And I remember going, no, I don't want it. It's too far. I regret that a lot now. But that's never been the case for Kona. Kona has been the hottest ticket in triathlon where you have to earn it. You have to earn it. And even if you go as a legacy athlete, you have to earn it by doing 12 of them. And then there's that whole complicated thing. So to hear this year that they are still in a position to be able to go, does anybody want to go? Automatically takes, I think, a lot of the luster away from it as an event. And yeah, I think this is what's happening, mate. Like I just think it's another example of how this brand doesn't actually care. They don't care about the press. To them, this is our hottest ticket that people will pay whatever the fuck we ask. As long as we get our race entry, that's all we care about. And again, I know people who've took a slot and then they can't go because they sign up for the non-refundable, non-returnable, non-transferable Kona entry thinking, yes, I finally did it. I didn't expect to qualify, but they offered me a slot. I took it. I'm going to race Kona. Check accommodation. Oh, shit. I can't go. I've just spent $1,000 on race entry. $1,000, and I have literally just wasted $1,000 because I cannot go because I cannot afford the accommodation. And that's the thing. Ironman don't particularly care. And
it snowballs. I mean,
like I said, exactly.
It snowballs because it becomes like when it's always been an expensive trip, as Tim said. But you know, if you're the best of the best and you've been working your entire triathlon life towards trying to get to Kona and you get that slot and you think, oh, you know, this is going to cost me loads of money, but I'm going to do it because I get to go and race the very best of the best in the place where the sport came from, then you might take that on the chin. But nowadays you get to it and you go, oh, I've got my slot. Do I want to spend that money? Am I racing the best of the best, or am I going simply so that I can brag on Instagram that I've got a slot in Kona? And is that worth this cost? Is that worth this amount of money? Are we going to see the real beating heart of the sport racing Kona anymore, or are we just going to see, you know, blokes with yachts?
Yeah, I mean, I went in 2019, and to be honest, I think you could do it. It wasn't cheap, but it wasn't like, oh my god, I can't. Like, we booked a 2-bedroom apartment with a friend of mine. We split all the costs. It wasn't that bad. This time, I'm incredibly lucky that there was a cancellation, and I'm not. My accommodation is like $250 a night. Like I heard that I was trying to go, and I basically decided I can't afford to go to Kona for work. And if it wasn't for Bob Babbitt hooking me up with these cancellations, but if you're an athlete, you can't do that. You can't hope that there's a cancellation a week before. Like I'm going not to race, so it doesn't matter for me. Whereas if you are actually trying to go and compete, you can't hope for that. And you can't book in advance. The whole thing of that going this year and just booking next year, you can't because the price is already going to be so high. Because again, the worst part about it, James, is people are paying them. So these people who are putting the prices up are going, you paid it, I'll do it again because clearly it works. It'll be interesting to see if the race fills like, that there's been a lot of talk about the move to 2 days, and they have the women race one day, the men race another day, even though there are actually men racing both days. So it's not just a women's only race on the Thursday. I think it's certain age groups of the men, the older age groups, are also racing on the Thursday, which again is a whole
I don't like
thing.
that. I don't know. Keep it. If you're going to separate, if you're going to split it, split it. I'd rather everyone was racing on the same day, to be honest. But if you're going to split it, split it.
But it's because, mate, they actually don't care. They just care about, we have this many spots that cost this much. We want to sell every one of them. People need to. I understand that it doesn't actually really matter what Ironman think about it. It's what it means to the person who wants to do it and stuff. But if you want more proof that they don't particularly care, this is it. And I think, I think they're going to have to. Here's a question. We'll get to the race preview a bit later. But as a spectator, as a fan of the sport, as a person who covers the sport, we've had St. George this year. Are you does it feel different that it's Kona? Are you more excited that it's Kona than it was St. George? Is it the venue that makes you more excited?
I think you're asking the wrong person on this one, because I've never particularly had that connection with Kona. It's just a place where the World Championships is held. I don't hold it in some revered thing. I would. There'll be lots of people that will disagree with me on the internet, and feel free. I barely read your tweets, so feel free to.
Everything's muted.
yeah. But I've never particularly loved Kona as a venue. It's never really done anything. It's never sparked my interest. I don't have any interest in racing there. I don't care. I would much rather the World Championships was on an interesting, unique course, a different kind of course every year. I don't see why it has to be in the same place every year. So no, it doesn't make any difference to me that it's Kona. I enjoyed St. George as much as I'll enjoy Kona. I also have. I have no particular. I think I've probably raced my last Ironman branded event. I don't think I'm particularly keen on them as a brand. I don't get me wrong. I understand they're a business, and I'm not shitting on them. I'm just, it just doesn't do it for me anymore. That the big triathlon entity that they are, and chasing after something that like Kona is not for me.
I think for me, I'm like, oh, I can't believe we're finally seeing Kona again. That's not a thing for me. And it's been interesting seeing, again, I was on the trainer for 2 hours today. So I went through a number of the Bob Babbitt interviews, and I really liked that when he asked both Christian and Gustav, he's like, hey, you finally went out on the Queen K. What was it like? And both of them are like, unremarkable. Unremarkable. It's not anything. And I think I've said it a lot. It's a fucking shit course. Swim's exceptional. The run on Leahy Drive, amazing. Bike course is boring as batshit. It is. There's nothing out there. I am more interested in this race than St. George because I think it's a stronger field. I think that particularly in the women's field, I think it's a stronger field. Slightly less now that Kat Matthews is out, and the men's we're going to see Christian, Gustav, and Magnus and Joe and all these people. Again, I'm starting to get that Jan's out, Ali's out. Is anybody else going to drop out? We got it St. George a little bit, but I don't think it's. I just think that I really feel like something's going to change soon. Whether it's going to be that the actual pro race rotates, or I don't know what it is, or we will see the PTO step up, and then the pros will stop racing this. But it's tough, mate. And I do think though that this has become a bit of a. It's really put a spotlight on this Kona situation, and
you've got it's an imbalance between the two objectives. You've got a sport where Ironman as a business want as many people in the world to be doing Ironman as possible, don't they? They want it to be they want everybody to go I want to be a triathlete. But at the very top of that, you've got a World Championships that only the 1% can afford to go to. The two things don't equate; they don't compute. It doesn't make any sense.
Exactly. And I've said this a lot. I really just don't feel like, again, and this podcast very much focuses on the professional racing. I think for an age group, I really think as an age group, if Kona is a race that you want to do, 100% do it. I get that it's a bucket list. It's 100% that bucket list race. I understand the need to tick that item off your list, but I just feel like I've said this a lot. I don't think the future of pro triathlon is Ironman. I really just don't think that we need to lose that baggage, and we need to lose that. And it made people going to say, maybe I'm contradicting last week. I hope it's the PTO. I hope the PTO is a future. I look at that Challenge San Remo race that, again, we're not really covering this week, but I still think that there's these exciting courses out there, and maybe it's the case that the PTO. I was having a conversation following up the stuff I said last week, and I said, you think about the Olympics. NBC pays all this money to broadcast the Olympics, or whoever, Channel 7 in Australia, or whoever it is in the UK, they pay all this money to broadcast the Olympics, but they don't put the Olympics on. They're not the organization responsible for putting on the Olympics. And I think that's maybe something we could see. There are exciting Norseman. There are these exciting races out there, Lanzarote. There are, that could be great. And maybe it's the case that the PTO goes, let's go broadcast this. Let's bring our athletes. Let's make this a PTO bonus race, or whatever you want to call it, and do it that way.
And put some standards in place. Standards in place. Make people bid to be on the PTO tour with a set of parameters that they need to meet to be able to be on that PTO tour. And then once you've met those parameters, if you win the bidding protest to be that race in that region, then the PTO bring their broadcast capabilities to that race. That's the kind of route I'd be going down. Tendering process, mate. Get a tendering process in place.
Well, did we talk about this last week? That I looked up the finisher numbers from. I tried to look up Texas; they weren't available. But I looked up the finisher numbers for the 100K race in Edmonton. There was 250 age groupers. So that's not enough.
No,
and I don't want to go. I don't want to get back on my soapbox.
God, there were 14,000 runners in the half marathon at the weekend, and that's what I mean. It's a different ballpark. It's a different thing.
But I genuinely have this feeling that we're going to see Kona. I think St. George is a very good positive step, because I actually think that, as we said, we're very excited because it's a different course. But I think it's, again, the thing that the PTO is getting right, it is about having the best athletes race each other. And there is something excited about seeing them at a long distance. But who knows? Maybe next weekend will change our minds. But yeah, I think there's a tipping point coming, I feel. And if it is that people just go, you know what, actually Kona's not that special, or I'm not spending, like, that could be a reason that suddenly things start to move elsewhere. So we'll see. Because I mean, can you imagine the World Cup going, the biggest sporting event in the world, the FIFA World Cup going, we're going to put this race in this little town somewhere because it's historically, it's where football was created. No, you need to have a certain number of hotels, you need to have a certain number of airports, you need to have certain facilities available to prevent what's happening.
Because they've doubled the amount of people racing Kona this year, because they've split the days. So you've got double the amount of women racing, double the amount of men racing. Do they think that you can double them 3 days apart and those people only come for those days and those days? No, mate. All of your hotels have to come up. People are coming out for a week, so you've got double the amount of people on the island.
At least a week, mate. Well, that's, again, and I think that's the thing, isn't it? This is what I mean. I actually think this could be a good thing. Again, as somebody who wants to see the World Championships rotate, and I've said it, I think Kona will always be that bucket list race. People will want to go and race Kona, whether it is called the World Championships, whether it's always the age group, whatever it is. I just think from pro point of view, I think it's getting to the point where things are going to have to change. So anyway, we're doing pretty well for time. We actually started talking about the race. So I think there's a few things we're going to skip through, just because I don't want this to be a 2-hour episode this week. And we're going to talk about Super League Triathlon Toulouse, because we're back to Super League. We had a week off last week after Malibu the week before. We are back into the action. Got this little preview from John Levinson at Tri247. And he says 2 weeks on from Zuma Beach in Malibu, the Super League Triathlon Championship returns for round 4. There's a brand new venue for Super League this Sunday, with Toulouse, France hosting the triple mix format. Hayden Wild seemingly has a commanding lead at the top of the men's series standings. And Georgia Taylor-Brown, can she return to the top spot for the women, where after winning her home race in Malibu, the consistent Taylor Spivey currently heads the table by just 1 point. So who are we going to see at Toulouse? The nature of Super League Triathlon racing is that you can get familiar with broadly the same athletes racing at each championship series around. Toulouse will see the return of Johnny Brownlee, Kenji Nina, and Panagiotis Bitados, who were all absent in Malibu. There are 2 wildcard additions in France, and quite appropriately, they are French. The star name is Dorian Connix, who won Bermuda in 2019 and Montreal 2021, who recently beat Christian Blumenfeld in Bergen. The course is based on the impressive Porte de la Derude. The swim will take place in the Garonne River in southwest France. Is that Garonne? How am I meant to say? You know this. You'll be the French.
That would be Garonne.
Garonne River in southwest France. For the first time since the opening round at West India Quay in London, athletes will take on the triple mix format, which will see them race 3 times in 3 different racing formats. Stage 1 is swim, bike, run. Stage 2 is run, bike, swim. Stage 3 is bike, swim, run. And I'm assuming it's probably a pursuit start like it was in London. Currently in the rankings, we have the women. First place, Taylor Spivey on 42 points. Second place, Georgia Taylor Brown, 41 points. Third place, Miriam Casales, 27 points, so a huge gap. Fourth place, Verena Steinhauser, 27 points. Fifth place, Sophie Caldwell, 26 points. Is Sophie Caldwell back? I wonder. I didn't see her name there. And the men, Hayden Wild, 43 points. Vasco Valasa, 32 points. Third place, Matt Hauser, 29 points. Fourth place, Taylor Reid, 27 points. And fifth place, Shakar Shagiv, 26 points. In the teams, Sharks are on first place, Cheetahs second, Scorpions third, Rhinos fourth, Eagles fifth, but I don't care about the teams, so I left it to last. What are you thinking about Toulouse, mate?
Toulouse, mate, the home of the sausage. It's famous for their sausages. It's Toulouse. There
you go. Thank you for that key piece of information.
But also, I mean, this relates quite nicely to what we previously talked about Ironman. Toulouse is a fantastically beautiful and eclectic part of the world. You've got amazing scenery, interesting culture, good food, welcoming locals and plenty of places to stay. And that's what Super League does well, isn't it? They go to interesting venues, interesting places, generally cities that people can pop in and pop out of. There isn't a crush on accommodation because you can stay wherever you want and normally walk across the city to go and see a Super League race. And that's the beauty of this kind of racing is its accessibility to all, because not only will they have the pro race, but they'll also have some age group racing happening as well, which should be available on their website. So I'm very keen to see how this goes. As we said last week, absolutely gutted that Matt Hauser stumbled as he did and is now probably out of the runnings for the overall.
Knows,
but you never know what's going to happen with Super League. Do we think Georgia Taylor Brown can take the lead back? I don't know. Like you said last week, Taylor Spivey is looking particularly aggressive. She looks like she's on a mission, and I would like to see this race to the end. I don't want to see a clear winner come out of the women's until we see that last race. Same with the men's, but Hayden's got a bit more of an advantage. I think Toulouse is definitely something worth tuning into, though. It's a beautiful place. Have a look at it.
I'm really excited to see this new venue because, I mean, it's tradition. It's always been Jersey's been one of the races, and Jersey got removed from the schedule this year, and Toulouse replaced it, or sort of replaced it. But again, I like that. I like that it's different. It's exciting. I mean, I've heard of Toulouse a lot. I mean, southern France, it must be pretty special. And again, I just like this format of racing. I missed it last weekend, actually. I've really enjoyed having Super League to watch. And it was a bit, I did notice that I didn't have it to watch. So I will definitely be tuning in to watch this on Sunday night Australia time. And come on, Tyler. Get back up there, mate. No pressure.
Do you think she can do it?
Who?
Do you think Taylor Spivey can do it?
Yeah, definitely. I was talking about Tyler Mislachuk, but...
Oh, right. Yeah, I got my Taylors and my Tylers mixed up.
Taylors and Tylers. I think it's... I think she can. Interesting as well, just to note, I saw that Vincent Louis put out a post on his Instagram this week, basically confirming that he's had an Achilles tear. I think anybody who watches his social media has seen that he's been MIA for weeks. Disappointing to hear that he's been injured, and hopefully he will be back sooner rather than later, because again, it's not been the same. I mean, I know that he's not performed as well at Super League in recent times, but he's sort of the king of Super League. So heal up, Vince.
Yeah, man. Good to see Vince back. I do like him. He's a good bloke, old Vince Louis.
All right. Well, it's time for us to get into the meat, mate. The big, juicy part of the podcast, the thing we've alluded to. We've talked around a little bit. We've given some predictions
at points. This
but
section of the podcast needs its own intro, don't you, or something? Have we got an intro or a jingle? I don't want to get...
I'm not doing it, mate. I can't be... Don't, because that's work I'll have to do, and I don't want to do it. Don't throw... Unless you'd like to... You can... If you would like to sing one, if you'd like to use your voice to create a theme, I'm happy for you to do it.
What, right now on the spot?
Right now on the spot, if you want to.
Welcome
you can be like Poncho
Man,
who does Bob Babbitt.
Preview. There you go. I did it.
It's beautiful. Beautiful. Excellent. I might actually have to edit something over the top of that instead. But yes, we are here. It is Kona time after 3 years. 2019, the last time we saw Kona. It is upon us. In what is days away, we're going to see the race over 2 days, with the women racing local on Thursday and the men on the Saturday. We've got this race preview from Tri 24/7, I believe. And what we're basically going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about the race favourites. We'll go through the start list and we're going to give our analysis or our predictions of what we think is going to happen. And yes, we're going to pick some podiums. In the women's,
Well,
we'll
we're
start with the
gonna
women's.
by picking podiums, you mean we're gonna decide who isn't gonna win the race?
Pretty much.
Yeah, nice.
Pretty much. It's a guarantee to be picked.
Yeah.
If you yeah, exactly. Done. They're out, mate. No chance. This is the first time I'm not picking them. Race favourites. The defending Ironman World Champion, winner of the delayed 2021 event held in St. George in May, is Switzerland's Daniela Ryf, 4-time winner in Hawaii. She has 5 championship titles to add to her 5 70.3 titles as well. The defending Kona champion 2019 is Annie Haug, who returns, as does the woman she beat to the title 3 years ago, Great Britain's Ironman 70.3 world champion, Lucy Charles Barclay. Now, there's a lot of names on the start list, so I'm going to try to be, I'm not going to name them all.
Be selective, mate. Be selective.
So we got Daniel, as I said, Daniela Ryf, Annie Haug, Skye Monch, Ruth Astle, Lucy Charles Barclay, Sarah Crowley, who's podiumed twice, Laura Phillip, Lisa Norton, Heather Jackson, Fenella Langridge, Sarah True, Jocelyn McCauley, Sarah Svensk. Who else have we got here? Chelsea Sodaro, Laura Zimmerman, Rebecca Clark, Lauren Brandon, Renee Keeley, just names that I recognize now. Dimity Lee Duke, Kylie Simpson. Mate, there is some fire on this women's race. How do you see the women's race going? What are you excited about? What do you think? What are you worried about? Give us your thoughts.
Well, I mean, Daniela Ryf is coming into this race in a rich vein of form, isn't she? She's coming in as obviously the clear favourite, bookie's favourite, without question. She's the one that everyone's gonna, the sensible person would pick to win this race. Lucy Charles Barclay, it's fantastic to see her on the start line, but she's coming back from an injury and she only made the decision to race Kona, as I said she probably would. After the Dallas performance, her team have gone, okay, you can go to Kona and have a go at this. Who knows whether she's got that top end at that long distance yet? I mean, it's been a while since she's done a kind of long distance, high intensity race like Kona. So we'll see how that transpires, because I think her main objective is probably still the 70.3 worlds, and this is more of a, see where I'm at race, but I would like to see her firing. Annie Haug has not had the best of times of late, but she's unstoppable on her day. Where are you at?
Look, there's a lot. I mean, Daniela Ryf, I think, to me, is the clear favorite. I just think what she did in St. George and then what she did at the Collins Cup, she destroyed everyone, including Ash Gentle, including Flora Duffy, all these athletes who we've all these 70.3 specialists. She beat them by minutes. Like it was so impressive what she did. And I know that she's been in Hawaii for weeks preparing for this race, very focused on this event. So for me, it's 100% Daniela Ryf is a clear favorite. See, you say Annie Haug hasn't had a great year of times. I think she's been very good at the long course. We've seen her not be excellent at the middle distance, but at that long course stuff, like Roth, the last 2 years, she's been exceptional. And the run that she has, I mean, she didn't run down Kat or Danny in St. George, but that was a very hilly course. This is, I mean, there's some hills in Hawaii, but it's not a St. George. Lucy Charles, there is this air of uncertainty around Lucy. Is where is she at? And you said she made bullshit. The decision she wanted to race this after Dallas. I call bullshit on that. Like you don't make that decision to I am so skeptical about the whole Lucy Charles injury timeline. I feel like, and again, I get it. They can say what they like to say. They can play the mind games they want to play. I think she's coming into this race 100% trying to win it, ready to win it. It is just that thing of, with an injury like that and going that long, is that going to be in the back of her head? If there is a niggle or if there is a bit of pain, is the head going, is it the injury again? Or is it just the pain that comes from racing an Ironman? Like, that's always something you have to wonder. Yeah.
I have a cold and I hiccuped. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Carry on. Didn't mean to interrupt your flow.
Laura Phillip. That's an athlete that I'm very, very curious, because she has been one of the best performers. We saw her go so close to breaking Chrissy Wellington's record the same weekend as Roth. Or was it? No, sorry, the same weekend as sub 7, sub 8, where she went like 8:18. Was it in Hamburg or somewhere in Germany? She's the one I'm most excited to see race. I really want to see where she's at, because I think she could be, like, she's sort of, my podium is Danny, Annie, and Lucy Charles Barclay. I mean, shocker. And Laura is my one to watch. The other one as well that I'm super curious about is Sarah True. I've spoken about this a lot. I think that she is such a good athlete. She's getting older, but she's had a very different preparation this time compared to last year, and I think she could surprise a lot of people. I mean, Sky Monch, I love Sky. She's been preparing really well. I think we're going to see her maybe in the top 5. Maybe she could be an outside chance at a podium. Ruth Astle, the way Ruth bikes, we saw what Ruth did to Kat Matthews at Swansea on the bike. This is a course that would probably suit Ruth because she's small. Although the wind might, I don't know. But yeah, mate, there's a lot. But I'm going to go Danny, Lucy, Annie. I think we're going to see the same as we saw in 2019.
Yeah, and it's tempting to pick someone else, but it would be a fool who bet against Daniela Ryf at this race, I think. And so I'm going to have to copy you. As annoyingly good podcasting as that is, I'm going to have to copy you for Daniela Ryf for the win. But I'm going to put Lucy Charles-Barkley in second and Annie in third.
That's what I said.
I thought you said Lucy in third.
No, Lucy second, Annie third. But
then we've got identity podiums.
That's okay. I'm okay. Sarah Svens, who we saw go very, very fast in Cozumel, same as Christian last year. She'll be interesting to watch. Chelsea Sodaro, we've seen do very well. She's sort of stepped up to Ironman, and she's doing quite well. There's some interesting athletes here. I mean, Fenella Langridge, great swim, not as good as Lucy Charles-Barkley. I'm curious to see where Heather Jackson's at. She's sort of flown under the radar a bit this year, and she always does very well in Kona. Lisa Norton, again, Lisa's an athlete we keep saying we're waiting to see this potential, but I mean, again, her biking in Hawaii could be like, it could really make a difference. And Sarah Crowley, again, 2 third places that nobody ever, like, she just, again, completely flies under the radar. She's not even, neither of us even mentioned it. I don't know where Sarah's at, because she does seem to have had, I know she had a lot of stuff going on personally a couple of years ago during the pandemic and things like that, but she seems to be, preparing really well for this. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. And again, having that, I guess, not having the age group men sort of interfering with it, or maybe a little bit, but not interfering as much, like the women having their own dedicated race. It will be fascinating. But I think Danny's going to win by country mile, mate. To be honest, I think it's going to be Danny by.
I think it would do the coverage good as well, having that split race. I really do. You really focus and dial into each race as you watch it. But yeah, I agree with you. I think Daniela Ryf is going to take this out and become a 6-time Ironman World Champion.
The men's is a bit more interesting, to be honest, to me, because there's a lot of people. I mean, I think most of the people that I've named, I think I wouldn't be surprised if Annie, Lucy, or Danny won it. But I just think Danny, if the form is to be, if the form has continued, is like back beyond what she was before. But the men's, it's a bit different. So in the race favorites, general consensus is that Scandinavia will be featuring strongly towards the front of the race. Of course, Germany currently holds the historical power in the men's pro race in Hawaii, winning the race on the last 6 editions. However, defending champion Jan Frodeno will be absent. The Bergen Norway duo of Christian Blumenfeld and Gustav Iden will likely be the most talked about names this year in the men's race, but the current Ironman and Ironman 70.3 world champions respectively, the fastest 2 athletes at the Collins Cup. They were also the first to cross the line at the PTO Canadian Open. Debutantes in Hawaii, they have the sort of backup team that you imagine will have them as well prepared as possible for the challenges that they will face. So there's 51 athletes on the men's start list, including Christian Blumenfeld, Lionel Sanders, Braden Curry, Chris Lefferman, Florian Angert, Patrick Langer, Sebastian Kienle, Gustav Iden, Tim O'Donnell, Ben Hoffman, Cameron Worth, Daniel Beckergaard, Sam Laidlow, Dave McNamee, Joe Skipper, Rudy Von Berg, Matt Hansen, Max Newman, Colin Chartier, Carl Buckingham, Nick Castellan, Magnus Ditlev, Bradley Weiss, Carl Smith, mate, Sam Appleton. There's a lot of names on this. Robert Carlin, who we've seen is very, very strong on the bike. Josh Amberger, excellent swimmer. Andreas Streit's got a wild card. I'm really happy that he did after the horrific crash that he had in St. George. David Pleasure as well. But mate, the men's race, how do you see this going?
Yeah, it's going to be a big day out, this one, isn't it? Look, you've obviously got a lot of noise around the Norwegian boys because they're going to come in, and as we were talking about earlier on the podcast, they keep winning everything. Blumenfeld just keeps winning everything. He keeps just absorbing victories, and whatever he puts his mind to, he seems to achieve at the moment. Look, I don't think Lionel Sanders is going to have much of an impact on this race. It's a real shame that Jan Frodeno is not going to be here. Alistair Brownlee's not going to be here, but I think it's best we focus on those that are, those that aren't. For me, I think we're going to see Magnus Ditlev lay down a real marker on this race, and he's my pick for the victory. I think he's coming in not under the radar because he is second in the PTO rankings at the moment, but with less of a target on his back because the Norwegians are absorbing so much of the noise around being the favourites for this race, that I think it's going to allow Magnus to do what he does best and put some real distance on that bike and hold on for the win.
There's a lot I'm interested about, and I heard again of Breakfast with Bob today. Christian was saying that he actually has done a lot of work to try to make that front pack of the swim in Kona. And I mean, you look at his swim at sub-7 was fucking good. He got on those feet of his pace and he swam very, very quick. So if he gets on that pack, I think we could see Christian up there. But the thing I'm most curious about, and again, I am not an aerodynamic expert, but I look at that bike of his and I think, why the fuck would you ride that thing in Hawaii where there are absolutely brutal crosswinds, that thick frame? I just again, I could be completely off the mark. There's probably people who know a lot more about bikes going, you have no idea. You shut the fuck up, you dumb idiot.
Yeah. But I feel the same. I saw an article this morning on one of the websites we use, and it was like the evolution of this this bike. And I looked at it and I was like, that thing looks like a sail. It looks like if a crosswind hits it, it's just going to get picked up. I wouldn't ride that bike anyway, but I mean, I wouldn't want to ride it in Kona.
I look at what a lot of the guys are doing, and again, having, I guess, an inside access to some of them, knowing the lengths that they go to, that the absolutely marginal gains they make to make sure that they are as quick as possible, not from a physical what they can do, but gear setup point of view. To then look at what Christian and Gustav are riding, or they're set up a little bit. And again, I rode Giant, and for a long time, I think they're great bikes, but I just don't think that they're as dialed in as some of the other ones. I feel like that's maybe the area to me that could let these guys up, because I think from a physical point of view, they are best of the best. But I just do wonder if maybe that's something that's, because again, when you're at the top and suddenly companies are paying you big dollars, you might sacrifice a couple of seconds here or there if it's going to make you, an extra zero on your paycheck. I mean, I have to say this just because every time we don't, I cop shit about it. Braden Curry could absolutely do well here. I hope that he learnt his lesson from St. George and paces his marathon. I think that we are probably going to see a group break away, that swim group get away, and I hope that they do enough. I really want to see people try to exploit Christian and Gustav's weakness, which is their swim a bit. I want to see a group go. I hope we see somebody like Magnus, who's maybe just ahead of the Norwegians or with them, and then drop them on the bike or make them work. And I'm hoping that because they have such targets on their back, they aren't able to just sit in. A Cam Worth won't just pull them up. They're forced to do the work, because I don't want to see them run in relatively fresh. I want to see them run in after they've had to fucking bike
on the ragged edge. Yeah, exactly.
And then there's a lot. Patrick Langer, I just think he knows how to perform here so well, and he's not having to worry about Jan Frodeno this year, and he's flown completely under the radar. He could be very dangerous. But then again, I look at what happened to him in Roth, and he got exposed, and he rode 15 minutes slower than roughly 15 minutes slower than Magnus and Jan. And you can run 5 minutes faster than these guys. You can run 10 minutes faster than them. That's not enough. You can't let those bike deficits go. And again, I just hope that the guys out there don't let those really good runners not do the work on the bike. And then I think of something like a Joe Skipper
sitting in the back of a bike train.
Yeah, but then or even like a Joe, because we know that Joe has the bike power. Joe's biggest weakness is his swim. Like, there's no pretending. But again, we've seen Joe, his swim's improved. Like, 51 minutes or 49 minutes maybe at Wales, or 50. He's not as bad. He was awful at sub-7. And we're back, James Bale. Again, technology struck us down. I think we literally gave the secrets. We explained exactly how the race was going to unfold to the detail. We went through every single kilometer of the bike and run, second by second breakdown, and it's lost to the internet forever because our internet shit itself, and we lost that part of the recording. So we're back to where we were, mate.
Yeah, you were basically in the middle of saying that there were a lot of names in that men's field that could have an impact on the race. Much more so than I see in the women's. In the women's, I see those top three as a fairly impenetrable podium. Yep. On the men's side, there are names in that lineup that I wouldn't be surprised if on their day they had a they brought a victory or a second or third place out of it. So it's difficult to pick a podium. But I have picked a podium. Have you picked a podium?
I can on the spot. I'll do it as we go. You want to go first?
Yeah, for me, I mean, Magnus Ditlev is going to win it. I think he's going to win it on the bike and then hold on the run. And I see the podium being rounded out by Christian Blumenfeld and Gustav Iden.
It's interesting because I feel like the Norwegians are either going to win it or something's going to go wrong. Like I have this gut feeling that if they don't win it, they're not even top 5 potentially. Like there's so much.
Yeah, I just see them coming off the bike and not being able to make up the deficit that someone
That's
like
possible.
Magnus has laid down, and I see them almost getting there, but not quite doing it.
Well, I'm going to go, and this, I know it's funny because we pick the same in the women's, and I don't want to do it. Again, I was thinking I could pick a top 10 in the men. I think I would actually struggle to pick a top 10 in the women's just from, I feel like this, and again, I wouldn't pick in order, but I could go, these are the 10 people who are going to podium. Whereas I think in the women's, I'd actually struggle because I think that there's a lot more uncertainty about that because I think there's quite a drop off in the women's. There's probably 6 or 7, and then the rest, I'm not sure. I think there's a very similar level. Whereas podium, and again, I'm going to be honest. When you ran into Christian after St. George and he's like, you didn't pick me, it got in my head. And I'm a bit nervous. I'm a bit nervous about saying, it's not Christian. But I also think there's like, and I'm not trying to be biased, but I really feel like Joe and Magnus are on the precipice. Like, I really feel like we're going to see something great from Patrick Lang. He's so good in Kona, except for the year that he wasn't. Daniel Beckergaard. Fuck, actually, this men's one's tough. So you've picked Magnus, Christian, Gustav.
Magnus, Christian, Gustav in that order, yeah.
I'm going to pick... Fuck, do I have to pick order or can I just pick 3?
No, you have to pick order. Come now.
Magnus, Christian, Joe.
Joe. Interesting. You put Joe in 3rd place.
I have a feeling. I have a feeling. I really feel like Joe could... I think he could podium. I think he could 100% podium. I feel like I just don't think the race is going to go the way we expect it. I have this thought that we're going to see this group get away in the bike, and maybe Magnus's gap's big enough that Christian can't shut it down, and then we see him and Joe have that sort of battle, and it comes down, and maybe Christian just pips him because Christian has a slightly faster marathon. I'll tell you the thing that makes me the most worried about this race. There's one athlete on this race that, as much as I love him, I kind of wish he wasn't racing. It's Cameron Worth, mate. Cameron Worth is the athlete
he's that guy that could basically become the wheel that people sit on and get pulled up through the race.
That's what worries me.
Influencing the bike on a bigger scale than he should. I don't know whether he's going to be how far off the back he's going to be on the swim. And how much
if we're based on a Super League, a long way.
Yeah, quite a long way. Yeah, so he'll there is a chance that he could be the wheel that people like the Norwegians sit on and get pulled up through the race. But we'll see.
Magnus
I mean, he's still
because Magnus beat his bike time from Roth.
Oh yeah, Magnus has his number without question.
Yeah.
Magnus has.
What about a wild card? Who's your like left of field? You'd be surprised if wouldn't be surprised if they.
Yeah. For the win, my wild card,
just
Joe Skipper.
Just
Joe Skipper, mate. Joe Skipper. Okay. Joe Skipper for the win on a wild card day.
I'm going Daniel Beckergaard just because again I feel like Daniel is an athlete who if he gets it, Daniel. Huge fan of Daniel. If he gets it right, he's fucking world class. I hope Sebastian Kienle goes well. I think he's flying under the radar. Mate, I see now. I've said it. Who did I pick? Who did I pick?
You picked Magnus, you picked Blumenfeld, and then you picked Joe.
I see. I'm having a bit of regret. Ooh. I really don't know, mate. Fuck.
Lang's in there as well, isn't he?
Yeah. So is Gustav.
Man, from an emotional point of view, it would be. It's not going to happen, but it would be fucking amazing seeing Kienle just have a blinder,
mate. I wouldn't be surprised if he did. This is the thing. Like, God. Like he ran, what was his run split was it the Collins Cup or somewhere? He ran like almost as far. He was like 3rd fastest run split or something. I don't know, mate. I'm really perplexed, and I like that I'm perplexed. I think that's what we sort of talk about. I mean, I fully expect Christian to probably win this thing. If he gets everything right, I think Christian's probably going to win it. But there's other athletes, as I sort of said, that I think, and that's why I'm like, I genuinely think you're right. I think Magnus, if everything, the only thing that I'm worried about with Magnus is it's his first time on the island and what that means. But that's why I think somebody like Joe could be good. Joe's done enough Konas, 2019. He's on the uprise. He says it's the fittest he's ever been, knows how to race this course. He thinks about how to race these other guys.
Yeah.
And at some point, I also just wonder, is the rest of this season going to catch up with Christian? Because he's done so much and he's done so much so well.
We've said that a lot, though, haven't we?
I know we have. And that's why I don't want to say it. Mate, fuck. This is hard. I don't know. I've said it, whatever. I've done it. I'm not going to change.
Oh, you've done it. You're not changing. Okay.
I'm not changing. All right, there you go. Kona, let's see how wrong or right we are. I'm actually genuinely excited to see these races unfold. I think it's going to be exciting, and we'll be back to talk about it maybe in a week or two. Who knows? James, what's next?
Welcome to the down low on the PTO. Mate, we took a bit of a steer from Try 24/7 and John Leveson on this one because the latest PTO rankings are out just in time for Kona, and reigning Ironman World Champions Daniela Ryf and Christian Blumenfeld top the standings as they look to defend their crowns. There were plenty of talking points after August update owing to the complex ranking process, but the rankings now have much more logical look to them. Ryf dominated at the Collins Cup, jumps back to the top spot, with Ashley Gentle also leapfrogging Anne Haug to move to second from sixth. Gentle, of course, has had an incredible run at the PTO events, winning both the Canadian Open and US Open, as well as a match race at the Collins Cup. Norwegians Blumenfeld and Gustav Iden have been split at the top of the men's standings by Magnus Ditlev. The Great Dane, the hugely impressive winner of Challenge Roth this season, was runner-up at the US Open last week. And it's the man who beat him at Dallas, Colin Chartier, who is one of the biggest movers from up 17 places to number 11. The current PTO rankings on the men's side: Christian Blumenfeld, Magnus Ditlev, Gustav Iden, Lionel Sanders, Alistair Brownlee, Sam Long, Florian Anger, Sam Laidlaw, Daniel Beckegaard, Leon Chevalier. Current PTA rankings on the women's side: Daniela Ryf, Ashley Gentle, Anne Haug, Lucy Charles Barkley, Laura Phillip, Kat Matthews, Taylor Knibb, Sky Munch, Paula Finley, Holly Lawrence. Those are the two top tens, mate. And I think they're right. It is a much more logical looking order. And as per that article said a few weeks ago, and we gave him a bit of a bollocking for it looking so illogical, these things do shake out over time. The only issue I've got is that time is it's too big at the moment. You want to see races happen, rankings be affected immediately. You don't want to see, well, that race is going to count in like 4 weeks, so we'll wait to see the rankings shake out. I want to see these rankings to be reactive and instant. But it's looking a lot more logical now. And go on, Ditlev, second place. Good on you, son.
It's cool, mate. I have no idea how long this episode is. I think it's
really
time to say
long.
that if you guys enjoy this podcast and you want to support the podcast and you want bonus stuff and partner discounts and all that stuff, I normally say head to mxendurance.com/podcast. As little as $10 a month or $3.40 if you go annually. Supports us, gets us to do the extra stuff that we try to do when we go to races, even though I'm maybe not doing it in Kona this year. But yeah, it's a good way to support the show. Keeps us doing it. mxendurance.com/podcast. James, if you want to find out more about MX Endurance, where do you need to go?
If you want to find out more about MX Endurance, head to mxendurance.com or search MX Endurance on Facebook or at MX Endurance on Twitter or Instagram. If you want to follow me, I'm at bale.james85 on Instagram, or you can follow Tim at tfoot14 on Instagram. Jump onto iTunes, give the show a review. You can do it in the podcast app. Really helps us out. We could do with some more reviews right now. If you like what we're doing, tell a friend. Help us grow. Got any suggestions, guests, comments, or criticism, send an email to podcast@mxendurance.com.
This has been a hard slog, mate. We've had a few challenges to overcome this episode. Yeah. It feels like we've been recording for about 6 hours.
It does feel like it's been a mission, this one, eh?
We got through it. James Bell. Till after Kona.
Kona.
Talk to you later, mate.